In this video, I'm going to show you how to take a men's size small shirt and turn it into a woman's smock top using this as my inspiration. I made an earlier version of this top and it turned out to be my favorite men's shirt refashion, but it was very complicated to sew, so I wanted to make an easy version of it. Since this project is geared towards beginners, I'm going to go over every step in detail, so hopefully everybody will be able to follow along. For this refashion, you'll need basic sewing supplies like a sewing machine and thread, an iron, some straight pins, a seam ripper, measuring tape, scissors, some 1/4-inch elastic, a safety pin, and a man's shirt, as well as something to mark your fabric with, like a washable marker, a piece of soap, or tailor's chalk, or whatever you have. Just make sure you can wash it out. For the shirt, choose one which is only slightly oversized. Mine is a men's size small, so it basically fits me, except that it's a little big in the shoulders. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is remove the pocket from the shirt. I often use a seam ripper for this, but you can also use nail scissors or a razor blade, or you can just pull on the threads. But be careful, because if there's a hole in this area, there's a good chance it will be noticeable. Next, we're going to make the gathers using a strip of elastic. To calculate the length for the elastic, measure from the button placket to the sleeve seam, which is 6.5 inches on my shirt. The elastic should be about 2 inches shorter to create the pucker effect. Then add an extra 1/2 inch. On my shirt, that comes to 5 inches, so I cut 4 5-inch long pieces of elastic. You could do a single row of gathers instead, and in that case, cut 2 strips of elastic. Next, try the shirt on to decide where you want the rows of gathers to go, then mark it with pins. Turn the shirt inside out, note where the pins are, and make a straight line from one pin to the shoulder seam using a marker. Make another line for the second pin, and repeat on the other side of the shirt. Now we are going to sew the piece of elastic to the shirt. On my machine, I'm using a medium to small zigzag stitch for the width, and for the length, it's a little over 2 millimeters, like 2.5 millimeters. So first, I'm going to line up our elastic here, put the presser foot right on the edge of the elastic. We're just going to sew a couple stitches. That's 3. And now back tack it. 3. Forward again. Okay, so once that's secure, you're going to pull this elastic. And we want to pull it about 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch past the stitching of the armhole, right? So it goes right up to that seam. So you want to pull that nice and straight, and then just sew. And hold on to the back too. So you can we want to keep this nice and flat on the fabric. And keeping it on our line there. Mark. And again, I'm pulling this, I'm going to hold it over a little bit. So that's that extra 1/2 inch. Straight all the way to the edge. Then once I get to that seam, I can back tack. that's what it now looks like from the outside. And you can see the zigzag stitch. Then we can chop that extra little piece. So now we will sew the second one using the same technique, basically. The elastic here. First thing we want to do is secure it. See? Okay, once it's secure, now this one's a little trickier because you have to stretch the first one. Again, just making sure that it's just a little bit longer. You see here the end is just going over the seam. And once you get right to the seam, back tap. So this is now what it looks like on the outside. You can see the little zigzag stitches. And then this is what it looks like on the inside. And there we go. Now we just have to do the same thing on the other side. Next, we're going to cut the elastic for the sleeves. Measure it by wrapping the elastic loosely around your arm, then add 2 inches and cut out 2 strips of elastic. For reference, mine were 12 inches each. Next, try on the shirt to decide how long you want the sleeves to be and mark it. I want my shirt to be short-sleeved, so I put a pin right there. Add approximately 1 inch for the elastic casing. Draw a line where you want to cut the shirt. I made mine parallel to the cuff. Fold the shirt in half and line up the 2 sleeves. Align the underarm seams and make sure the top seams are also together. Line them up carefully, then make sure everything is nice and flat. Cut both sleeves together on the marked line. Next, we're going to create the casing for the elastic around the sleeves, but we're going to iron it first because that will make it easier to sew. Turn up the edge of the sleeve about 1/4 inch and iron it into place all the way around the sleeve. Turn the folded edge over again, this time around 1/2 inch, because the casing should be wide enough so that a safety pin can pass through it. Iron all the way around and repeat on the other sleeve. Now starting here, the underarm seam. Now again, we want to make sure that the casing is going to fit the safety pin. So, I want to sew as close to the edge as possible. And make sure we're using a straight stitch. I usually line up like right here. I line up the fabric right here so that it's close to the edge. And now here's that seam where we started, and I want to leave a little gap. So I can thread the elastic through. So now we are going to take our safety pin, put it through the elastic, and then thread it into our piecing. You can see that. Okay, so now we're gonna sew the two pieces together. I'll overlap them for about an inch. Then make sure your machine is on the zigzag stitch, and sew in the center of the elastic. Clean up those edges a little bit. There we go. That's it. I'll thread that back through the sleeve casing. And now we're just gonna close up the hole there. Put the machine back on the straight stitch. Now here we're going to back tack. We're going to sew directly on the seam that's already there, and we're going to back tack to secure it. So across the opening and over to the second seam. And back tack. See, it's just got just a little bit of a pucker to it, not much. Next we're going to cut the bottom of the shirt, so try it on and mark where you want the hem to be. Add a little over 1/2 inch for the hem, which is right above this button for me. So I'm going to remove the button, then mark where to cut the shirt and fold it in half. Line up the plackets, then line up the seams, and make sure everything is nice and flat. Make a straight line across the shirt, then cut off the bottom section. Before sewing the hem, I like to iron it in place first. Fold the bottom of the shirt over 1/4 inch and iron it all the way from one placket to another, making sure to give the bulky seams a good press to keep them in place. Fold the edge over a second time and iron it in place all the way around the shirt. So now we're going to sew the hem. And this is quite thick, so it can be a little tricky to sew to get started. So I'm going to pull on these threads back here if I need some help getting it started. And now I want to sew as close to the folded edge as possible, all the way around. And that's it, we're done. So here's the result. This is a super easy refashion. Sewing the elastic gathers is a little tricky, but with a little effort, even a beginner can do it. I wasn't sure I'd like this shirt as much as my first and more complicated version, but I'm actually really pleased with how it turned out, and I hope it inspires you to try your own refashioning project. Thanks for watching, and happy upcycling!